Imagine a combat veteran, someone who has risked her life in real war zones for her country, walking into a talk show expecting a serious professional conversation, only to be greeted by a panel that has already labeled her a traitor on national television. Picture the tension when a soldier dedicated to defending American freedom enters a studio where the hosts have spent weeks branding her a Russian asset, a useful idiot, a Trojan horse threatening democracy. What happens next is unforgettable. This is the moment. Tulsi Gabbard stared down Joy Behar, refusing to let the smear campaign continue, unchallenged. This isn't a celebrity trying to manage controversy or a politician scrambling to defend a misstep. This is a decorated veteran calling out character assassination in real time, dismantling baseless accusations with the precision and calm that would impress any military strategist, and showing the nation exactly what true patriotism looks like when it's been dragged through the mud. Joy Behar thought she could control the conversation, just like she does every day on The View, with interruptions, diversions, and the silent approval of co-hosts. She assumed Tulsi would shrink under the weight of Hillary Clinton's repeated accusations, amplified week after week on national television. She assumed wrong. Every single assumption she made was about to be shattered. What unfolded was a confrontation The View never saw coming. Quiet strength meeting relentless accusation without flinching. Tulsi reminded everyone in that studio and everyone watching at home that words have consequences, that smears have targets, and that not everyone will sit quietly while their character is publicly destroyed for ratings. This was more than television drama. It was a masterclass in truth delivered with military precision, a demonstration of how real service and integrity can slice through propaganda like a knife through butter. Joy Behar learned the hard way that there's a massive difference between criticizing someone's politics and attacking someone's patriotism, especially when that patriot has actually bled for her country while you've been comfortably seated in a studio making baseless accusations. That morning, the View studio gleamed under its familiar bright lights. The iconic curved desk, the plush chairs, the perfectly placed cameras, all designed to capture every reaction, every gesture, every anticipated moment of drama. The audience buzzed with excitement, eager to witness history unfold. Joy sat in her usual spot, surrounded by co-hosts armed with talking points, ready to interrogate and dominate the narrative weeks of preparation had set the stage. Tulsi Gabbard was compromised, untrustworthy, somehow not American enough despite her military service. The story had been rehearsed, reinforced, repeated, and accepted as truth in certain circles. Tulsi entered the set fully aware of the battlefield before her. This was no naive hope for fairness. It was a calculated strategy. Like any skilled soldier, she assessed the terrain, identified the enemy's positions, and engaged directly rather than letting the lies stand unchallenged. Dressed in professional attire signaling seriousness rather than spectacle, her posture rigid, upright, and composed, she was ready to face the storm head-on. Her expression was calm, pleasant even, yet laser-focused, a veteran's focus. The interview began with what should have been a simple political question about impeachment, a routine softball politicians face constantly. But there was an edge beneath Joy Behar's tone, a subtle signal that she already knew where this conversation was headed. The slight smile on her lips, the exchanged glances with her co-hosts, it all suggested they were preparing for a game Tulsi had no interest in playing. Not today. Not after weeks of having her name dragged through the mud by people who'd never worn a uniform, never faced combat, never risked their lives for their country. "Were you surprised by what he did yesterday?" Joy asked, her voice carrying the practiced enthusiasm of a TV host. Engaged but performative, Tulsi began. "Well, look, the facts are important, but she wasn't falling into the trap. She had her own agenda, a mission objective that went far beyond answering the question posed." When Joy tried to interrupt, attempting to redirect the conversation, Tulsi remained calm, her slight smile betraying the recognition of a familiar tactic. Politely, surgically, she conveyed a single clear message. I see what you're doing, and it's not going to work. Joy attempted to maintain control with forced cheerfulness, asking, You want me to ask you the question? But Tulsi had had enough of the dance, enough of letting others control the narrative about her character and service. Some of you have accused me of being a traitor to my country, she said, her voice calm but steel-lined. A Russian asset, a Trojan horse, or a useful idiot. I think that was the term you used. The studio hushed. This wasn't part of the script. Tulsi wasn't here to play along. She was here to call out the character assassination happening in real time. She broke down the term useful idiot, exposing the intent behind the words and forcing the host to confront the impact of their rhetoric. Joy's confident composure wavered slightly. The co-host shifted, clearly unprepared for such directness. Tulsi turned her attention to the audience, changing pronouns intentionally. I want to let Americans at home know the truth. She spoke with undeniable authority, declaring, I am a patriot. I love our country. Each word carried the weight of lived experience, of someone who had proven her devotion through action, not rhetoric. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, she continued, highlighting the hypocrisy of a supposedly progressive show attacking someone who embodied the very values they claimed to celebrate. I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and freedom of all Americans. The audience fell silent, the kind of quiet that comes from recognizing a moment of genuine courage and service. Beyond the shallow theatrics of political television. As Tulsi began to explain her motivation for enlisting, Joy couldn't let her finish. She interjected, trying to regain control with forced casualness. Well, I guess we were getting a little far ahead of ourselves, she said, sidestepping the heart of the conversation. When Tulsi's service and character were challenged, Joy resorted to name-dropping supporters as if the opinions of others could somehow undermine Tulsi's integrity. Franklin Graham finds you refreshing, she said. He doesn't find me refreshing. She even invoked Richard Spencer, the white nationalist leader, suggesting absurdly that anyone he supported must be suspect. The desperation was palpable, but Tulsi remained unmoved. Every attempt to manipulate the narrative was met with calm, unflinching clarity. This wasn't about politics, it was about honor, service, and truth. And in that studio, for everyone watching, it became clear. This was a veteran refusing to be defined by lies, refusing to let her character be dragged through the mud. You're responsible for everyone who supports you, even those whose support you've explicitly rejected. Joy pressed, relentless now, throwing out whatever mud she could find. You're on Tucker Carlson at least 10 times. Why don't you go on Chris Wallace's show? The question sounded like legitimate media critique, but it was a trap. Another smear disguised as a question, appear on shows Joy didn't approve of, and suddenly you were compromised. It was dizzying circular logic. The View had spent weeks calling her a Russian asset, and now, when Tulsi came to defend herself, they claimed she only appeared on friendly platforms. Tulsi didn't bite. Calm but firm, she replied, because you and others continue to spread innuendos that have nothing to do with who I am. Her voice rose slightly, carrying controlled frustration. Not anger, not loss of composure, but the justified response of someone who'd been slandered and finally had a platform to set the record straight. Joy tried to dodge responsibility, claiming, well, Hillary started it, as though she were merely a messenger. Tulsi wouldn't let her evade accountability. Boy, you called her the queen of warmongers, she said. You doubled down on the baseless accusations that strike at the core of who I am. The words lingered, cutting through the noise of the studio. This wasn't political theater. It was about identity, service, and honor. I'm a soldier, Tulsi declared, and the 3 words carried more weight than anything her critics could claim. She explained her decision to enlist, motivated by the attacks on 9/11, to confront the evil that had visited America. She didn't just run for Congress. She put on the uniform, deployed to war zones, and served on the front lines while Joy Behar hosted daytime talk shows. I've served over 16 years, Tulsi continued, each year a rebuttal to casual accusations. Deployed twice to the Middle East during the height of conflict, she had witnessed the human cost of war firsthand. Every single day. While the hosts saw coffee cups and teleprompters, Tulsi saw lives, blood, and sacrifice. The contrast was stark, undeniable to anyone watching. It was this service that shaped her political career. I ran for Congress to continue that commitment to serve rather than for personal ambition. Joy tried to regain control, eager to inject evidence to support their narrative. We actually have a clip of Hillary Clinton to put this in context, she said, relief clear in her voice. The screen filled with Hillary's image, her voice sharp as she delivered the accusations that had dominated headlines, calling Tulsi a favored candidate of the Russians, implying foreign influence and questioning her loyalty, all without saying it outright. The accusations were damning, delivered by a former Secretary of State with unmatched credibility, and they carried enormous weight. Tulsi's response was measured but powerful. "This is outrageous," she said, her voice now carrying genuine emotion. Justified outrage, not hysteria, not performative anger, but real, lived indignation. The claims weren't about policy. They questioned her very patriotism, suggesting that a woman who had risked her life in war zones was secretly working for America's enemies. She methodically dismantled the narrative, citing her nearly 7 years in Congress, her service on the Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, and Homeland Security Committees, and her receipt of top-level national security and intelligence briefings. If she were truly a Russian asset, would she hold security clearances? Would she be trusted on committees handling the nation's most sensitive security matters? The logic holes in the accusations were enormous, yet the narrative persisted simply because it was politically convenient. Tulsi cut through the smears with facts, clarity, and authority, ending with a simple truth. I'm running for president to continue that commitment of service. Tulsi brought her argument full circle. She wasn't running for power or attention, but to continue serving the same mission that had led her to enlist after 9/11. But Joy couldn't let that statement stand. "So, are you surprised that when people see bots and other things heading your way, they have questions?" she asked, carefully phrasing it to sound like innocent curiosity rather than coordinated character assassination. "You're saying nobody's grooming me. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm a soldier and a patriot." "It's offensive to me," Tulsi replied, her voice edged with the controlled intensity only combat veterans can summon. She called out the hypocrisy of a show that claimed to champion women while participating in the denigration of someone who had achieved more than most could dream. Shifting to substance, Tulsi addressed actual policy issues. "I'm pointing to the fact that she, Hillary, has continued the legacy of acting as the world's police, waging wars that have cost the lives of thousands of my brothers and sisters in uniform." Her words weren't abstract statistics or talking points. They were about real people she had served alongside, people who had died because of interventionist foreign policy decisions. Joy tried to interrupt, but Tulsi's incredulity cut through immediately. "Are you serious? Are you serious?" she asked, her voice rising with genuine disbelief. "I served in the war in Iraq that she championed," Tulsi said. Landing the accusation like a bomb, Hillary had promoted a regime change war, making decisions from safety while Tulsi faced the consequences on the battlefield. And now, that same person questioned her patriotism. Joy attempted to excuse Hillary, claiming she had been misled, but Tulsi methodically dismantled that defense. It is indisputable to say anything other than the fact that Hillary Clinton, throughout her career, has led with a foreign policy of interventionism, toppling dictators and waging wars that cause destruction and loss of life. She connected the dots explicitly. The same person who had sent troops, including herself, into harm's way, now questioned the loyalty of someone who had actually fought in those wars. "I'm against that. I'm running for president to change that," Tulsi stated simply. But the attacks weren't just political, they were designed to intimidate. Rather than debate policy, the establishment used smear campaigns to undermine dissenters. "Toe the line, or you too will be smeared," the unspoken rule said. "Disagree with endless wars, and you're labeled a Russian asset. Challenge military intervention, and you're a useful idiot. Question the establishment, and you're a traitor." The audience sat in stunned silence. Recognizing that this wasn't the usual View interview, this was a decorated combat veteran systematically dismantling a smear campaign, while the people who had launched it sat powerless, unable to defend themselves. Tulsi didn't apologize. She didn't try to soften the attacks. She flipped the script entirely, putting Joy and the show on trial in their own studio. She exposed the hollowness of their accusations, demonstrating discipline, authority, and unmatched credibility. How dare comfortable television hosts question the loyalty of someone who had volunteered to fight after 9/11? How dare people who had never worn the uniform suggest that a veteran of 2 combat deployments was working for the enemy? Tulsi reminded everyone that the policy debates, the legitimate questions about America's role in the world, military intervention, and national security, deserved serious discussion. Instead, the establishment chose character assassination, and Tulsi proved in real time that such a strategy collapses when faced with actual service, sacrifice, and unwavering integrity. She didn't need to argue that she wasn't a Russian asset. Her record spoke for itself. Tulsi's entire life proved her loyalty. Her military service, her committee assignments, her top-level security clearances, everything about her record directly contradicted the smear, and she had just laid it all out in ways the View could not refute. Joy's attempts to redirect the conversation to soften Hillary Clinton's accusations, to make them sound like legitimate concerns rather than political hit jobs, all fell flat against Tulsi's unflinching clarity. You can't both sides accusations of treason. Either there's evidence or it's slander, and Joy had none. Only guilt by association and discomfort with Tulsi's foreign policy positions. The contrast was undeniable. Tulsi brought receipts, deployments, committee work, security clearances, 16 years of service. The View brought innuendo, bots, vague allegations, and fear of independent thinking. One side had served in combat, the other had discussed service from a studio. As the segment ended, it was obvious who had won the confrontation. Tulsi had entered hostile territory and not only defended herself, but went on the offense, forcing the host to confront their own role in spreading lies. She turned their platform against them, transforming what they had hoped would be a character assassination segment into a showcase of why the accusations were absurd. Joy tried to maintain composure, acting as if it were normal political discussion, but her discomfort was clear. Tulsi refused to accept the framing that she had anything to prove. She didn't come to convince them she wasn't a Russian asset. She came to hold them accountable for making baseless claims. This was not whining or victimhood. She simply stated facts about her service, forcing the View to reconcile their smears with undeniable evidence. Cognitive dissonance became visible in real time. You cannot claim someone is a Russian asset while acknowledging their security clearances, nor question loyalty when their entire adult life has been spent in service. For viewers, this was rare television. Someone refusing to play by the rules of political discourse, refusing to treat baseless accusations as deserving of dignity, and instead reflecting them back on those making them. Joy's discomfort spoke volumes. She had hosted thousands of interviews, handled controversy, and managed difficult guests, but this was different. This was a combat veteran with an unassailable record, someone who had sacrificed comfort and safety for a greater cause, now telling them that their accusations were not just wrong, but offensive. The View had miscalculated. They assumed a break from democratic orthodoxy on foreign policy made Tulsi naive or compromised. They assumed she would play defense. They were wrong. Tulsi prosecuted the case against them instead, demonstrating a masterclass in handling smears, not with spin, not with political calculation, but with direct confrontation and an unassailable record of service. Every attempt by Joy to soften the accusations or reframe them as questions was met with a single undeniable truth. You accused me of being a traitor. I am a combat veteran. Those two things cannot coexist. Either defend your accusation with evidence or admit you were wrong. The View had no evidence. Only Hillary Clinton's suspicions, vague concerns about online activity, and discomfort with Tulsi's policy positions. None of it justified calling a woman with 16 years of military service and 2 combat deployments a Russian asset. By the end of the interview, the impact was clear across the political spectrum. Critics of Tulsi's politics found themselves admiring her courage. Those who had believed the accusations were now questioning why The View could not defend them. And her supporters felt vindicated watching her dismantle the narrative in real time. This confrontation revealed a truth about modern political discourse. Smears work best when the target does not fight back. The View had amplified Hillary's accusations because Tulsi had previously lacked a platform to respond. Once she was in the room, facing Joy Behar directly, laying out her record, the accusations collapsed under their own weight. Joy thought she could control the conversation as she does every day on her show. She assumed Tulsi would be another guest, easily interrupted, easily dismissed, easily boxed in. What she discovered instead was that combat veterans who have faced real enemies aren't intimidated by talk show hosts playing gotcha games. The lesson wasn't just for Joy Behar or The View. It was for the entire media ecosystem that had participated in spreading doubts about Tulsi Gabbard's loyalty. When you accuse someone of treason, you better have evidence. When you question someone's patriotism, you better have a record that matches or exceeds their service. And when you invite that person onto your show, expecting them to meekly accept your framing, you better be ready for the possibility that they'll reject your premise entirely and put you on trial. Instead, Tulsi Gabbard walked onto The View that day and did something political consultants would probably have advised against. She confronted her accusers directly, forcefully, and without apology. She didn't seek middle ground or mutual understanding. She didn't pretend there were legitimate questions about her loyalty. She simply laid out who she was, what she'd done, and why the accusations against her were not just wrong, but offensive. Joy Behar and the rest of the hosts had no effective response. Because when someone's life speaks louder than words, when a service record contradicts your accusations, when a person faces you directly and dismantles your narrative, no amount of deflection or composure can hide the truth. The audience sees it. The record speaks for itself. That's the power of truth backed by service. That's what happens when character attacks meet a refusal to accept lies. That's the moment when comfortable accusations meet uncomfortable reality, and reality wins every single time The View thought they were hosting another political interview. What they actually did was provide a platform for Tulsi Gabbard to expose how hollow their accusations were, how baseless their suspicions, and how offensive it is to question the loyalty of someone who risked everything while they sat safely in studios, judging from comfort. The confrontation was over before it began. They just didn't realize it until Tulsi walked through the door and reminded them what real courage looks like. Not the courage to make accusations from safety, but the courage to face those accusations directly and dismantle them with truth.